Hello. Hello. Welcome to the second of the spring break midweek fly tying streams. Let me just adjust this so y'all can see a little bit better. I realize again, this distance from the camera to the fly is not quite optimal. Um, like I said, I'm actively trying to improve the stream, and one of the things that I really want to do is buy some, webcams that I can put on flexible mounts and position them so that you can see the fly and what's going on. Also, on Tuesday, I was a little bit of an idiot. I was talking about how great my new mic was, and turns out I didn't even plug my new mic in. So you were just getting the onboard mic from my computer. But this time, today, I definitely made sure to plug in my mic. Again, that mic, I was able to purchase that mic, the new mic, and I was sorry. I was able to purchase the new mic because of the people who generously purchased flies off the Etsy shop. Improvements to the stream and all that are coming a few at a time. Thanks to people who purchase flies. I'm really, really grateful. I really appreciate it, and I know that every little bit of improvement to the stream just makes it a better experience for everyone, especially the viewers, but especially for me. Before I had this mic, I was having to wear a headset and kept bumping into it, and it was hot and itchy. Unfortunately, using the mic, I no longer have an excuse for bad hair. But if I just crop the video just a little bit, then you won't notice. But I have to say, with the stay-at-home order, I haven't been able to go out and get a haircut, and my hair's getting a little bit long, a little bit scraggly. Excuse me. So yeah, if you get my pre-show plugs in, if you want to see more of my work, head over to Instagram. It's at justwondering.brad. I post all the pictures of my flies right now over on Instagram. When I hit 500 followers, I'm getting really close. When I hit 500 followers, I'm going to run a giveaway. I'll be giving away a bunch of fishing quality flies that I've tied. Some salmon flies, some mom flies. And originally I'd been thinking of doing some kind of competition, but with everything that's going on, it'll probably end up being a random drawing of some sort. But, maybe the competition idea will come back, or it'll come back later. We'll see. Haven't quite decided on that. If you'd like to support the stream, like I said, head over to my Etsy shop, purchase the fly. That's really the best way to support the stream. I could have a Patreon or a I don't know, what are some of the other services? Ko-fi, I think I've seen, although I think that's more for like the gamers. I don't like asking for money and not being able to give you guys something in return. So I really appreciate everybody who heads over to the Etsy shop and purchases flies, because that allows me to give you something in return. And again, all that money from the Etsy shop goes back to support the stream. I use it to buy materials so that I can keep tying flies. I use it to buy technology upgrades such as the microphone. I've mentioned previously that one of my goals right now is to buy a higher end computer that I can edit videos, do a little bit of a higher quality stream so that you guys can see more of what's going on, and also do like how-to videos. I get a lot of requests for how do I tie in a married wing, or what's your technique for this? And, I can show you on the stream, but you're seeing it at 10-inch distance on a smaller screen. and being able to do close-up videos would be nice. I have the capacity to film close-up videos, but I'm streaming off of a kind of a generic, basic laptop, and it just can't handle uh, video editing. Um, Rendering, even just rendering transitions is difficult for the computer that I'm on right now. So I'm really looking to upgrade the computer so that I can do more video editing. And again, I would like to buy some cameras just so that you guys can get a more close-up view. So what are we doing today? Today, well, we are going to be tying. We're starting to tie. We're going to do, again, kind of that 2-day thing where I do the body, tie body on the first day, and tie in the wing on the second day. And the second day will be probably Saturday, maybe Sunday. If you go over my Instagram, I'll let you know. I'll make an announcement. But it'll be this weekend. It'll be kind of our normal weekend live stream. And it'll be at a more normal time, weekend time. So 1 p.m. either Saturday or Sunday. That's 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. Saturday or Sunday. And we'll be finishing this fly. We'll be doing the wing for this fly then. Also, this coming weekend stream will be a Q&A. So if you have questions, please put them in the comments below, and I'll answer them on the weekend stream. Or you can go over to my Instagram and look for the picture of the McLeod. Let's see, do I have it here? Yeah, so go over to my Instagram. Look for the picture of this fly. This is the McLeod from Mary vs. Marbury. Comment your question on the picture of this fly, and it'll go to the same place as comments on these videos. I'll be answering questions, and you can ask me questions about classic fly tying, salmon flies, Mary vs. Marbury flies. And also you can ask me questions, or we can just chat about the ongoing events in the world, the pandemic. I've said this in other streams, and I'll be happy to say this again, because, I'm a microbiologist. I'm a bacteriologist by training, but, I know a little bit about viruses. I'm a PhD in microbiology. I did research for almost a decade. And just recently, I quit doing research and I went back to grad school to get my master's of public health in epidemiology. So, I'm very familiar with what's going on. I might not know everything, but I'll know where to look. So if you put your questions about that in the comments or on my Instagram, I will be happy to answer them at the weekend stream. So, yeah, that is also happening this weekend. Okay, so what are we tying? We are doing. There's a set of flies that I've kind of been wanting to do for a while, and it's a set of 3 flies, and they're sometimes called. Well, I've heard them called like the nursery rhyme trio, or the nursery rhyme group. I don't think they are related via the nursery rhyme. I think they just happen to occur in the same sources together. I am familiar with a single source that has all 3, although I know all 3 patterns have can be found in additional sources individually. They might occur together in one of the other sources. Um, I just don't have the, the the recipes for. Um, but these are the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. And the patterns that I'll be tying are the patterns out of Francis, and um, yeah, it's kind of that old nursery rhyme trio. Um, so today I am doing the body for the baker. Um, I've actually had the body of the butcher hanging around. Um, I'm waiting for some materials that go into the wing to finish this. I actually started this body a long time ago, before I started streaming, um, and I just haven't had the materials to finish this wing. So this body has been kind of set aside, but I realize that I do have the materials to do the baker, and I think I have the materials to the candlestick maker. So I think for the next couple of weeks at least, um, these are the flies that we're going to be working on the stream primarily, and then we'll probably just do some bonus Mary Arvis Marbury type flies, or some more fishing flies to go into the giveaway pot. Um, Variety of things. So that I'm just finishing up laying down underbody. Um, you'll kind of notice that I ran my gut a little bit long, um, and just running my underbody for pretty much about half, and that's okay. This body is primarily dubbed, so the big important section to have a very fine, smooth underbody is the rear half, because that's where all the floss is. Um, yeah, I just happened to cut this amount of gut, and I didn't want to waste it. The gut makes a perfectly fine underbody, and if you're, like I said, if you're doing a dubbed body, then it really doesn't matter too much. Just want everything to be smooth and have good tapers where necessary. So just gonna come up to the front. Now we're tying on a 1/0 Gaelic Supreme Harrison Bartley, which I was fortunate enough to pick up at the last fly tying show before quarantine shut everything down. It's not really quarantine. It's stay-at-home order. It's essentially a quarantine, but not quite as strict. If this were a true quarantine, you wouldn't be able to leave your house for nothing. I think here in our area, sorry, I'm looking out a window here, kind of habit. But here in our area, you can leave to go to the grocery store, to go to doctor's appointments. You can go out on walks if you stay 6 feet away from other people. So it's not a true quarantine. It's just kind of a heavily suggested quarantine, I guess. All right, so I'm just going to run this back to the front just to even it all out, and then make sure the taper is good. And like I said, there's a little bit of a step right here in the underbody, and that's not a big deal for a dubbed body. And also, um, you know, uh, for wings, this has a pretty simple wing, and I kind of want it to sit pretty low to the body. So having a little extra wiggle room in terms of not adding too much bulk on the top of the body actually seems like pretty good idea right now. All right, so let's just we'll finish off our body, our underbody. That is, this is just unistretch, gray unistretch, because sources were out of white unistretch. Normally I'd use white, but gray works just fine. I was a little concerned that the gray might show up under lighter colored floss bodies, but it doesn't, which is nice. Start the tying thread. Okay. All right, so the tip is gold twist, and I'm using fine gold, fine round gold. Pretty sure this is rounded, not oval. It's pretty fine. It's pretty difficult to see, but it looks round. Normally on like a fishing fly, a fly that would actually see water, I would not use round gold tinsel. And the reason for that is because round tinsel, when tied on at the very end of the fly, so the tip, essentially, has a tendency to roll. And the real, some people say, the real reason why there's a tip at the end of a tag is the round or oval tinsel acts as like a barrier to prevent the floss from sliding down the bend of the hook. The problem with round tinsel, supposedly, is that round tinsel will roll down the shank and then allow the floss to slip. I don't really see how that's possible, but as I understand it, that's why oval tinsel is usually the choice of the people who tie salmon flies for fishing in modern times. I stick to that just because why risk it, especially if you have a client who's paying several $100s for a dozen fishing flies. I mean, that's a lot. But yeah, so that's supposedly why oval tinsel is preferred for tips. Now, obviously, for a fly that's not going to see water, never going to get wet unless your house floods, it doesn't matter. But yeah, if I were tying fishing flies, I guess I'd use oval tinsel just to make sure. But here I'm using round because it looks nice. This is a nice vintage antique tinsel, and it looks nice. So, Excuse me. The tag calls for lightish blue floss. And I am actually using just kind of a regular blue floss instead of a lightish blue floss because my choices are a little bit limited. Not complaining about it, but I just don't have. I pretty much have regular blue floss or pale blue floss. I don't think pale blue floss is really what is called for. Besides, I think this is a pretty bright blue floss, which I suppose you could say is a lighter blue floss. So, lightish. I also have a very dark navy blue floss, which I like to use on tags, but it's definitely way too dark for this application. And like usual, I've split the floss. So I'm just using a single ply, single strand. And this is French silk, like usual. Got some nice texture there. No glass smooth floss work here. Alright, just gonna trim these butt ends. So I think this, yeah. I'll bring my trash can over. So the tail is a golden pheasant crest. As usual, I'm just going to trim the excess barbs down to a little bit of stubble on the sides, and that stubble helps keep the tail upright on the body. Just gonna try it. That might be a little bit long, but it's kind of the style I'm going for. So I'm just going to flatten the tie-in area. My flat jawed needle nose. Give it just a little bit of a, can kind of see it flattened out the area where it ties in, and then just a little bit past it, so it lays pretty flat. And 2 wraps. Then just to make sure that the that stubble locks into the thread, I'm just going to give it a gentle pull, just a barely any amount pulled towards this way. That's just to make sure that those pieces of stubble are doing their job. And then I'm going to select my ostrich herl for the butt. All in all, this is a fairly simple fly. It's pretty straightforward. It's a little bit more straightforward than the other patterns in the fairy tale trio. But it's a pretty fly. It's got some good color and but there's nothing particularly different or overly interesting about its construction. So unwrap one, wax my thread per the usual. Just make sure the tail is on straight. Okay. Trim the tag end of the tail. Now that's secured with some waxed thread. There we go. Wrap my tying thread out of the way. Take my hackle pliers, favorite articulated hackle pliers. Just gonna pull the fibers of the herl back just so that they don't get stuck under the stem. To wrap a nice thick butt that is thick with 3 C's. Because millennial. Yeah, I suppose I'm technically a millennial. But man, I am grouchy like a Gen Xer. I'm an old man. Oh, it's interesting. I've heard a lot of discussion about how there's a segment of the millennials, some of the early millennials, born in the 80s, really, who are technically millennials because of when they were born, but who are culturally closer to Gen Xers. It's very interesting. I can see that. I'm a grumpy old man who is not terribly technology savvy. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so the rib on this is a broad gold. The only broad and gold tinsel that I have is this heavy, very thick oval gold tinsel. This stuff is a pain to wrap because the core itself has some kind of twist to it, and it resists wrapping in a in a neat manner. It wants, as you wrap it one direction, it wants to twist in the other. Not entirely certain what's up with that, but you know. Um, but it is so thick and heavy that it looks good. It's got that nice antique kind of shine to it, or patina. So I'm going to use it. The first segment of the body is golden yellow. And then there's a red claret hackle that starts after the first wrap of rib. So, of course, I'm going to divide up the body accordingly. I eyeball it. So if you think this thing has four body segments, 3 dub segments, 1 floss segment, you want the second turn of rib, to cross the boundary between the floss and the first dub segment. So that generally falls, you can fudge it a little bit, but that generally falls right at the 1/4 mark of the body. So I'm going to wrap golden yellow floss, and then I'll tie on the hackle, dub the rest of the body, wind the rib. Now this thing has 2 throats, a Gallina throat and a blue throat, a pale blue throat. So just got to remember to leave enough space at the beginning, at the front end, to accommodate 2 throats. Now I'm just going to loosely bind down all these tag ends from the body. Again, this is getting dubbed, so I'm not overly concerned about making it smooth. I just want it to be, have smooth tapers, not have extra large bumps and humps and things sticking out. And then, like usual, wax my thread, put a scant layer of wax thread on top of the underbody to help promote the dubbing, to stick to the body. And it also just helps if there are any fuzzies left over from tying down the the components of the body, the floss or the tinsel. It just kind of helps bind down or stick down the extra fuzzies that you might have accidentally incurred. Yeah. All right, so the first segment is, gotta tie in the hackle. So we'll tie in the hackle right at the end of the floss. So I'm using red claret rooster hackle. This is from John at feathersmc.com. Not sponsored, but I'm always happy to plug someone who provides such great materials. It really is a service that he does to the classic fly tying community. Because otherwise, we'd be stuck trying to scrounge things from a local shop shelves, and they got great materials, but they're not suited or intended for classic flies. Looking for a hackle that has pretty good taper and is fairly narrow. This is a 1/0 hook, so I could probably get away with a longer hackle, but I also have to think that this thing has two throats, and one of them is Gallina. And um, spotted Gallina doesn't usually come in all that long a fiber, all that long a hackle. So I just want to pick one that I want to be a little conscious of the other materials that are going on here and what size I have for tying those. So this one looks pretty good. I think it has pretty good taper. Yeah. So taper like a Christmas tree, not too long, uh, not too webby. It's a pretty good hackle. I'm just gonna wax up my thread. Waxing your thread helps keep helps tying in hackles, keeps them from pulling out. And they still might on occasion, but less likely to. Can tie it on the pretty close to the backside, maybe like the 7 o'clock position, right at the transition where the dubbing will meet the floss. Just gonna bind it down with the waxed thread. Gonna wax my thread again and dub the body. First segment calls for a dark orange, and then light blue and red. It calls for pig's wool, but I'm using seal because it's what I've got. It is not always easy to find pig's wool. Best comes from Bill Bailey, but it's not the easiest thing to come by, so I tend to use seal unless I'm tying a small fly or a fly where it actually makes a big difference in appearance. So this is seal. And if you're new to classic flies, most of the seal that is going around right now was not taken off seals recently. It is my understanding that most of the seal that is out in the market right now actually comes from recycled Russian army coats. So the Russians had no compunctions about utilizing seal to line their army coats, or clubbing seals to line their army coats. So when they surplus their coats, their winter coats, you can take the lining, shave it, and produce a good amount of seal dubbing. So apparently that's where it comes from. I have no way to verify that, but somebody like Bill Bailey or John McLean at feathersmc.com tells me that, I'm inclined to believe them. They're good people. They work really hard for the classic Salmon Fly tires, and I'm inclined to believe them on that point. All right, so that's the dark orange segment dubbed. And you'll notice I'm not using like a dubbing loop or anything like that. It is perfectly secure. It's been my experience that it's perfectly secure if you put a layer of wax thread down on your underbody and then just heavily wax your tying thread. That is secure, perfectly secure, and I've never had a problem. I've never had a body where I've just went to comb out the fibers. I don't normally comb out the fibers, but some patterns they call for well combed out dubbing, and I've done that. I've never had a problem with hairs pulling out or anything. More than you'd want for a combed out body. So uh, putting a layer of wax thread down in the underbody before dubbing your body on top of it really helps. And using the correct wax as well. Like I said, the wax I use is the black cobbler's wax. believe it is Kelson's formula, but you'd have to ask Bill Bailey which formula exactly he uses. But yeah, like a lot of my um, head cements and waxes, this is provided by Bill Bailey. Again, not sponsored. And the nice thing is if you get a package of wax and a bottle of head cement from Bill Bailey, they last a long time, and you can tie a lot of flies with them. And they're really great. So, and the last is red. No, I don't like the looks of that. So the last segment is red. Red pig's wool. And I was going to use a crimson seal because I think this matches my turkey better, but after taking a look at it on the body, I don't actually like the way it's looking. So I'm going to switch it out for a scarlet. And even though I'm not certain that the scarlet matches my turkey better, I think it'll look better on the body. Yeah, I definitely think that this will synergize with the other colors in the body a little bit better. Even though it's not quite the best match for the turkey that I have. Like I said, this fly has two two throats, so I just want to be conscious of leaving enough space at the front. I think I have. This doesn't have a herl head, at least it doesn't have to. Maybe it should, but I certainly the examples that I've seen don't. So, but maybe I want one. I kind of like the idea of these having herl heads. But then again, I enjoy putting I like herl heads on just about any fly. So, and do I want a little extra space, or is this okay? I think this is okay. I will say that this red's just a little bit longer than the rest of it. I think I'm going to pull just a little bit of this off. A slightly shorter red section, just to give myself, a couple of turns of herl for the head, because why not? Like I said, this has two throats, so a little extra space won't hurt. All right, so next I'm going to wrap the rib. I want the rib to fold right, so there we go. This one, like I said, this tinsel, for whatever reason, has extra tension in the core or extra twist in the core that just makes it want to twist back on itself. So bind it down. It's fairly thick, so I just want to make sure it's well captured. I want to wrap my hackle. And fold it on the fly as usual. So I hold the hackle out at 90 degrees. It's a little bit hard to see because I'm actually I'm trying to fold it on the back side of the hackle, or on the back side of the body. But I want to hold it out from 90 degrees from the body, and then, nuts, I pulled it out. All right. All right, I broke it off. This is fairly fine hackle, which is nice, but this is salvageable. It's going to be a little bit of awkward tying because I'm going to be tying with like 18 inches of thread and lots of fur on it, but we're going to salvage this. I'm going to salvage this live. So you probably can't see it, but I can see it. When this pulled out, it didn't pull out the tip where I tied it in. Instead, it had snapped. So we're going to just tie it in again. We're going to pick a new place to tie it in from. Tie it in again. We're going to have to be a little bit more conscious of our rib when we wrap it because it's a little bit short now. But hey. Just wrap the body again. All right. And just like that, it's saved. I think one of the things about tying is a lot of people, if something happens, like the hackle snaps um, or like something shifts, you don't think you can go back because you're really far into it. But if you have, good tying technique and good material manipulation, you can go back and salvage anything, really. Just gonna wrap this. All right. Barely. Just pull that rib tight. Tie it down again. Still got a little spare left. I think I ended up wrapping that rib a little bit tighter, so that was probably a little bit of a fortuitous thing. Anyway, wind down the rib. Again, thick rib, lots of wraps. Just wrap the hackle. Try not to snap it this time. Now I'm just being careful to follow the back end of the rib exactly with the hackle. I'm just barely going to have enough now. So I'm going to tie the hackle on the far, tie in the hackle on the far side. So I'm trying to balance the bulk created by the tie-in points, or the tie-off points rather. And the rib and the hackle should always be tied off in the order that they're tied in. So in this case, it went rib, hackle, so then when I tie it off, it should also go rib, hackle. Okay, next for the throat, there's a Gallina throat, and then there's also a pale blue throat. Pick. So this hackle actually ended up being a little bit longer because I had to use a portion of it further into the feather than I would have liked, just because I snapped off the tip. But so I'm looking for a fairly broad Gallina feather. And when it calls for Gallina, unless it specifically asks for spotted Gallina, usually they're talking about speckled Gallina or speckled guinea. They're not usually calling. So the difference is spotted has these large white spots, and speckled has the large white spots, but then a bunch of like smaller kind of mottling or speckling in between. So spotted, speckled. And usually when a salmon pattern calls for Gallina,